Hey there and welcome back to NBA 2K17. My name is Pete and today we complete the first year of NBA 2K17's MyGM or MyLeague mode with the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the Bucks are without a doubt a franchise on the rise. Built around the Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo, the team is young, very talented and the future is bright in Milwaukee. The average age of the Bucks' 15-man roster is at an insane 25.2 years, and the team is already at a point where making the playoffs is the expected season outcome. Playing with the Bucks is a lot of fun in 2K17, mostly thanks to having a 6'11" combo guard in Antetokounmpo, but also because they are a franchise that does not need to be completely blown up in order to improve his chances at a title. To get a better overview of what the situation is in Milwaukee, let's dive in and have a look at the lineup position by position. Now, the point guard might already be the most troublesome position on the Bucks roster. Dellavedova barely gets the edge here when it comes to player rating, but him, 39-year-old Jason Terry and sophomore Gary Payton are all not starting caliber material. Now, you could either pick one of the three, probably Dellavedova, and live with it for a year, or you could get creative and give the starting job to rising star Malcolm Brogdon. Brogdon can play both guard spots, even though his rating is actually highest when he's changed to small forward, so his skill set is not perfectly suited for the point guard. Playing Antetokounmpo at the point guard is another option that the real-life Bucks use for stretches, and even if you were to change him to a true point guard, his rating would only drop to 85, which is still miles above your other options. Ultimately, the choice is yours, but this is a critical point in Milwaukee's rotation, and I will get back to it in the 3 key questions in a few moments. The shooting guard is then comparatively easy. Chris Middleton is your go-to option here, and Brogdon is a very good choice as the backup. Once again, both of them are technically better suited as small forwards, but work just as well at the shooting guard. Rashad Vaughn can develop behind the two, or if the backup slot gets freed up with Brogdon playing point guard for example, then Vaughn can step in as the backup shooting guard, although his minutes should be somewhat limited in the beginning. The small forward is where Antetokounmpo reigns, and I think nothing should be changed about that. Tony Snell is a good backup solution, and if you have some minutes to spare, both Parker and Beasley from the power forward could see minutes here at the small forward as well. Speaking of the power forward, the obvious choice here is the currently injured Jabari Parker, backed up by Michael Beasley. I think it's questionable if there will be a space in the rotation for Mirza, especially since he is once again best suited to play small forward, and all of your centers have no problem adjusting to a role at the power forward either. And that brings us to the centers, where Greg Monroe currently has the highest rating and therefore also likely the starting job. Henson and Hawes both work well as backups, but I would like to direct your attention to 19-year-old Thon Maker. With a 74 overall rating, he is currently a good step behind Monroe, but his 84 potential will make him much better in a short time. Pair that with his athleticism and outside touch at 7'1" tall, and Maker should absolutely not be overlooked as an option for the starting job in 1 or 2 years. Up next, let's have a look at the expiring contracts, and thankfully nothing too critical here. 4 of your players are on expiring deals, 2 of those are probably rotation pieces in Beasley and Snell, while the other 2, Terry and Payton, could likely not see any minutes whatsoever. Also to note here, Terry might retire once his contract is up, and Tony Snell is the only player that can be re-signed to a contract extension during the season. There are also 2 player and 2 team options coming up for you. On the player side, we have an $18 million option for Greg Monroe and a $6 million option on Spencer Hawes. On the team side, we have roughly $7 million for Jabari Parker and a small 2-year option for Rashad Vaughn. Let's have a look at cap space next, and the entirety of your contracts puts you just below the salary cap for 2016, so you could add an additional $2 million in a trade or sign a free agent, but keep in mind that your roster is already full, so you would have to cut someone for that. Next season, the theoretical cap space is roughly $21 million, but the majority of that could get consumed by Greg Monroe's player option. Add to that the options on Hawes, Parker and Vaughn, and you could quickly find yourself on the wrong side of the cap. One of the reasons for this is also Antetokounmpo's new contract that kicks in next year and catapults his salary from $3 to $22 million. And last but not least, draft picks, and apart from the 2019 second rounder, the Bucks have all of their picks. There are a number of second rounders that could, under certain circumstances, also fall to the Bucks, but those would be picks at the far end of the second round, and they are likely not worth mentioning here. Now, before we go into the moves, here are, as usual, your 3 key questions that need to be answered going into year 1 with the Bucks. Number 1. Who plays point guard? None of the options at point guard look terribly intriguing, so it might make sense to experiment a bit with either Brogdon or Antetokounmpo here. If you would like both of them to stay where they are at the shooting guard and small forward, then a trade or a free agent signing at the point guard is a very sensible idea. Question number 2. Who plays small forward? The small forward is the other way around really, as we have a bit of an overload here. Even though on paper it looks like Antetokounmpo is the only small forward worth mentioning, both Middleton and Parker can get considerable rating increases if switched to small forward, which would make the 3 best players on the team all small forwards. Brogdon and Dellavedova could also get a tiny increase if switched, but that's probably not worth it. And question number 3, do you keep Greg Monroe? While Monroe is without a doubt your best center at the moment, his rating is good but not spectacular. The thing that is though is his $18 million player option. I am personally a firm believer in Thon Maker, at least in 2K, who could be your starter as early as next season. Getting rid of Monroe will without a doubt make your team a bit worse right now, and his trade value is realistically not that high, but you also don't desperately need to keep him around for the team to be successful. If we have a look at the list of players who should be considered untradeable in a realistic approach to MyGM or MyLeague, then that list should definitely include Antetokounmpo, Middleton and Parker. Brogdon, Hansen and Maker are likely a tier below them, but I would keep all 6 of them on the roster and make moves with what's left. And if you're wondering, Monroe is not included in this list for the reasons I just mentioned a second ago. And with the situation in Milwaukee now firmly laid out, here are 3 ideas for moves to make as the GM in Milwaukee in year 1 with the Bucks. Move number 1. Trade Spencer Hawes for a player with an expiring deal at either the center or the point guard position. The reason for trading Hawes is simple: his player option brings a lot of uncertainty and chances are high that he takes it. In that case, we would end up paying him more than needed for the next season, where cap space is a precious commodity. Hawes is also somewhat injury prone, so it's a good idea to move him right away before he maybe gets hurt longer term during the season and you can't trade him due to injury. We are targeting either a replacement at the center, although with Monroe, Hansen and Maker we do not terribly need one, or a short-term solution at the point guard. With Hawes we will not be able to bring in someone that we want in a long-term role on the team, so we will happily accept an expiring deal here if it allows us more flexibility in the off-season. A potential target could be Thiago Splitter from the Sixers. We would acquire $2 million more in cap space, but he perfectly fits the bill of an expiring center that can still be serviceable in the 1 year he plays for us. Tyler Zeller from Boston is another possibility. His contract has roughly the same value as Splitter's, although he has a 1-year team option coming up, which would have to be declined for this trade to make sense. If you want to grab an expiring deal and save cap space in the process, might I recommend Jeff Withey from Utah. His $1 million contract is quite the bargain and he is not significantly worse than Hawes. If on the other hand you really want to improve your roster, then Tony Allen might be worth a look at. He would definitely deepen your shooting guard rotation for 1 year, allowing you to safely move Brogdon to the point guard for that season, while his 78 overall rating is considerably higher than Hawes. Another somewhat unconventional option would be to simply release Hawes into free agency and sign someone like Jared Sullinger, Andrew Bogut or JJ Hickson to a 1-year deal. That will not remove Hawes' salary for this season, and it will not entirely get rid of his player option either, but it will cut his player option in half for the 2017-18 season and count that towards your salary. In the end, I went with a trade and acquired Jeff Withey and the second rounder. This frees up some more cap space, which we can use in one of the next moves. And here comes move number 2, trade both Matthew Dellavedova and Mirza to Ledovic. The reason should be obvious: both are rated in the low 70s with contracts close to or above $10 million, and those contracts are really not worth it. By trading them, we could get roughly $20 million off the books for next season, and if we want to make a push for a good point guard in free agency, then we will definitely need that money. What we are looking for once again are expiring contracts or low-value multi-year deals in the range of $2 to $3 million. If a solid point guard can be acquired for 1 year, then that of course has priority. Also, feel free to add this year's first-round draft pick, as you will likely not end up in a position where that holds much value for you. As always, of course, that depends on the strength of your draft class. Now you can either trade both Dellavedova and Ledovic in one move or package them in separate deals. If you make 2 moves, then at least one of those should include a point guard that is not worse than Dellavedova. First of all, trade targets for Dellavedova. You could once again grab Thiago Splitter, but the Hawks, Heat and the Warriors are also willing to part ways with 2 expiring players if you add Gary Payton to the deal. For Dellavedova, the same deals will likely appear again. Additionally, it is possible to grab Shelvin Mack from Utah, neither an up or downgrade, but certainly a financial relief. Other players like Mike Miller or Lavoy Allen can also be considered, as with Dellavedova you will likely have a bunch of options here. If you want to get rid of both Dellavedova and Dellavedova, then the only 2 teams that I've found you can make a trade with are Philly and Brooklyn. And I went with Philadelphia, who offered point guard Sergio Rodriguez and shooting guard Gerald Henderson. Rodriguez is once again neither an up or downgrade from Dellavedova, and Henderson can strengthen your guard rotation, which might actually be necessary should we decide to put Brogdon at the point guard. A possible rotation after this trade might look something like this. Brogdon as the point guard, he is just way better than Rodriguez even if he plays a little out of position here. Middleton the shooting guard, Antetokounmpo and Parker at the forward spots, with Monroe the center. Rodriguez can play backup point guard, Beasley can work as the 6th man, while Maker and Hansen battle for or share the backup center spot, with Snell and Henderson doing the same in the backcourt. And that brings us to move number 3. Do not re-sign Tony Snell to an extension yet. You have his bird rights, so that can safely wait until the major moves in free agency are done. While that is likely the more expensive option, it frees up $1 to $2 million now that you can spend on another big name. Instead, let's jump ahead to the offseason where we can make a few more adjustments. First of all, Jason Terry will likely retire. That is to be expected at 39 years old, and it won't hurt you too much. Your draft pick, if you still have it, should fall into the second half of the draft. If you don't have an incredibly deep draft class, I would not bother too much with the pick, and you might even trade it in one of the moves I just mentioned. I actually did not sign anyone in the draft simply because paying a 66 overall player $3 million a year was not worth it in my opinion. A bit more interesting are the options. The $7 million one on Parker we want to accept without hesitation, the others can and should be declined mostly for cap space reasons. The big one here is Greg Monroe. He has an option that could give him an $18 million payday, and sometimes he accepts that and sometimes he does not. I simulated multiple seasons and he does tend to decline, but I won't make any promises here. No matter what, you could end up with 2 different scenarios. Number 1, what I found to be more likely, he declines. Even after picking up the option on Parker, this leaves you with almost $35 million in cap space, enough to sign pretty much any superstar point guard you want. Now, why point guard? Well, the point guard is where you have the biggest need, even if it means that you will likely not be able to sign a star point guard and bring back Monroe, because sadly you don't have Monroe's bird rights. The decision between beginning another season without a true starting caliber point guard or starting a slightly worse center than Monroe tends to favor the point guard spot, and I would advise to prioritize that. You do have the bird rights for Tony Snell though, so he can always be brought back. Just make sure you actually offer him a contract before someone else does. With Monroe likely gone in this scenario, you should also focus on another starting caliber center, unless you want to put one of your existing guys into that spot. In that case, however, a backup still can't hurt. You can then fill the rest of the team with a few rotation players on minimum deals, and you should have a pretty powerful squad going into the next season. Now, scenario number 2 would be he accepts. This leaves you with $17 to $18 million in cap space, which puts you just outside the realm of grabbing a true star point guard. Players like Ty Lawson, Darren Williams or Rajon Rondo are still well within your salary, but they don't really give much of a boost to the team. What I would do in this situation is grab someone young at the point guard spot, someone in the mid-70s, hoping that you can offer them a cheap long-term contract now, which will be a steal once they develop. Players like Yogi Ferrell or Trey Burke come to mind, but you could also sign someone here with the intention of trading him for a better player down the line. Alternatively, you could secure the services of another very good role player at the shooting guard spot and keep Brogdon at the point guard, with guys like Redick, Hardaway Jr. or Waiters all still in your price range. That might even be the better choice. Keep in mind that Monroe also only stays for 1 more season, so if you want to bring him back, you should not overcommit here. All in all, this last scenario shows you why it might be a good idea to trade Greg Monroe before his player option messes up your future plans. I decided against it simply because I try to keep the moves in this series somewhat low profile, but there are several arguments to be made for shipping him off. Whether he sticks around or not, you will still have to fill quite a few spots on your roster, but as you might discover, none of them are really critical to your success. Bringing back both Tony Snell and Michael Beasley is probably a good idea, but both are cheap, and with Snell you also have bird rights, so at least one of them shouldn't worry you too much. And with that, I think we're through for the first season. The Bucks are definitely an interesting team. They have a few bad contracts that might make things harder than they need to be, but all in all, this is a franchise on the rise, and you can absolutely transform them into a championship contender within the next 2 to 3 seasons. As always, let me know in the comments below how you would handle the Bucks in MyGM or MyLeague mode. Leave a thumbs up if you like this video, or if you want to support the channel, then feel free to subscribe. I can say thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.